Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via Simranting of Radio 107.9 FM, Telems, Tel TV Plus Channel 15, respective radio stations island-wide, and online viewers. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor, Omar Otley, to address you. Minister Otley, you have the floor.
Good morning, Rolika. Good morning to the viewing and listening public. Good morning to the members of the media. I'll keep it short and brief. Last week, there were discussions or questions on the water quality in the report, so whereby the Inspectorate and the Ministry of ASR and GEBE immediately took action. What we did, we brought in a private consultant from Curacao who has dealt with this matter before, because what happened was the lab was reporting one quality and GEBE was another. So we brought in the independent consultant, and whereby we would test the water quality. So we are happy to announce to the public that the water quality did come back negative. So the water quality is good and safe at this moment. Immediately though, once the results came out the first time, everyone, GEBE and our stakeholders took precaution. But however, the test was done over the weekend and the water quality is up to par. So I'm happy to announce that. And I'll keep it short and brief and look forward to any questions from the members of the media.
Thank you, Minister Otley, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Silvera Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleague, Minister, and those on their way. Good morning also to the media and the Department of CoM. Good morning, people of St. Martin. It's a blessing for us to be here. I hope this morning finds all well. We are definitely blessed this morning with the passage of Tropical Storm Philippe over the past days. I'm relieved to inform you that, thank God, we have emerged from this weather event without any loss of life and with no major reports of flooding and or landslides. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all those who played a part in ensuring the safety and security of and well-being of our citizens during this very challenging time of uncertainty. Our first responders, of course, those at the Met Office, the VROMI workers, as well as the frontliners in the fire department, CAPASM, even the Marines who were on standby, and all others who continue to update on a regular basis as to their particular professional engagement. All these who work tirelessly, thank you, and all those who continue to work as the departments within VROMI are currently continuing to address any rock slides that may have taken place during the night, as well as whatever flooding. They continue to maintain the ponds and ensure that the waters remain low enough that the flooding in the usual areas around the pond does not take place. Of course, the usual flooding did take place in the Mullet Bay area, so we're asking all road users to go through that with extreme caution and to continue to monitor as well. As Prime Minister, I want to reassure you that government remains committed to your safety and welfare. While the storm may appear to have passed, we did learn through the various forecasts that most of the weather was in the southern part of the storm. So we still ask for persons to remain vigilant and follow the local advisories, as well as to reach out to local authorities should you have any impact that requires support or assistance. When we look back at the other islands, that played a huge role in the announcements that were made yesterday. Over the night before, especially what took place in Antigua and Dominica was quite a concern as to how quickly the floodwaters rose there. And that is why the precaution was taken during yesterday to have the business closures. Also in St. Kitts and today in the BVI, we are seeing extremely high flood. So indeed, flooding and landslides still form a part of the system, even as it moves away from our area. And we will continue to monitor and mention anything that needs to be mentioned. Today's forecast said that generally cloudy with rain and isolated showers. Isolated thunderstorms are still likely before noon. Gradual improvement is expected throughout the day, becoming settled by later this afternoon. So Even though that is the case tonight through Thursday morning, it will still remain partly cloudy and cloudy with isolated showers. This I read directly from the forecast on government's website. The cloud coverage that was there as of Philippe was huge. Even on the international monitors, you could see a huge white. It wasn't moving anymore like a circular. The center was disengaged, but there was still very high gusts that were also recorded at Princess Juliana International Airport. So depending on where you were on the island, you did experience some high gusts. And if anyone saw the seas, you would know that offshore we were experiencing quite some events. And this morning, some of our beaches are showing the effects of that, even though the seas have subsided somewhat. Let's not take things for granted, St. Martin. It is truly a blessing that we were able to escape with so little damage. And so we are thankful for that, but ask each one on the roads to continue to be very careful in how we're using the roads. Yes, there are some dirt and mud, etc. on the roads, as well as water. So be careful, think on your other road users, and be vigilant as to what's taking place with the storms. Oh, goodness. Yes. I also would like to give my condolences to those persons who are suffering the loss of loved ones over the past week. And remember that our nation stands with you. I did attend one this week already, and I believe some others in the Flanders family passed on Monday, I believe. So condolences to the entire family and all those who are still suffering the loss of loved ones. Do take the time to heal in your own way, and remember to seek the support of loved ones, family, and friends, and even mental health professionals if that is deemed necessary. Over the past week, as you know, October started on Sunday, which was the Day of Older Persons that we celebrated, and in this weekend there will be further celebrations of our elderly persons. Do look out even throughout the year for persons who are vulnerable, especially within our families, as well as continue to visit those in the home for the elderly. Today actually is World Animal Welfare Day. So of course the animal lovers out there would know that, but we know that a nation that is kind to animals is also a well-developed and kind and compassionate country. So do continue to treat our animals well. And tomorrow will be World Teachers Day. October 5th, and though the teachers are on vacation, it always falls good for our teachers. It usually falls in the vacation. Enjoy your day off, but as parents and students and community, do continue to show your appreciation for our teachers when they return. And lastly, in terms of celebrations, we have the 10th of October as World Mental Health Day. We celebrated some other mental health awareness with the walk last week. It was quite an emotional, not just the walk, sorry, it was the vigil with the lantern lighting, etc. And that was a very emotional one for many in attendance, those dealing with loss, those dealing with suicide, but also in general, dealing with mental health challenges. I pray for all those who are going through it, and remember to be conscious and compassionate. A kind world is always needed. Of course, October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we had the march. We will continue to represent for all those who are suffering from cancer. I know last week it was mentioned that there has been an acceleration in cancer cases in general. And I do pray for all those who have been diagnosed, those who have passed, those who are pushing through, and wish all a safe recovery through it. A reminder that the Civil Registry Department is open on October 7th and 14th to allow for the registrants persons to come in and rectify their registrations, update their profiles, to ensure that voting cards go to the respective homes where they need to go. Please check the opportunities and make sure that you are up to date with your status. Present a valid identification document, and if applicable, a utility bill to confirm your address. There was also an event that was organized by the Ministry of Base at CA. We had the Interinsular 6 islands, having discussions from the 28th to the 30th of September right here on St. Martin. And the State Secretary took that opportunity to visit the island with her team to update them on the way forward after the apology. That took place on the 1st and 2nd of October. I was there for the opening and was able to make the statements which were in line with what I'd mentioned before after the first apologies were granted. And so I look forward to our AXAR committee and other relevant organizations like the museums, heritage foundations, making use of the opportunities that are available. But from what I understand, there is still a long way to go in terms of accessing those funds. So you can look out for a press statement on that at a later point during the course of this week. For St. Martin, it remains responding not just to seed money for small projects, but longer discussions on reparations as such. With that being said, I would cede the floor and leave it open for whether statements from the Minister of Finance or questions from the media. Thank you, Relaika.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing scheduled for today, Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining us. I would like to inform that the Honorable Minister of Finance, Artwell Edion, is present, however, will not be making any opening statements, but available for any questions the media may have. I would also like to inform that Mr. Joseph Isaac of the Met Office of St. Martin is also here to answer any questions the media may have relating to Tropical Storm Philippe that has passed us. The floor is open. Bibi Shaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning, ministers. Good morning, colleague. My question is for the Minister of Finance, and I'd also like to have an opinion from the Prime Minister regarding this question that I'm sending to the Minister of Finance. Minister Ardwell, last week you went to Parliament regarding the proposal from the Dutch government with the 600 million loan to bail out ENIA. Minister, your faction leader and your coalition faction leader, they both expressed their disapproval for St. Martin accepting such a debt. They went as far as saying this is another form of enslavement. We just got an apology for enslavement, but we are here again being pressured to take a loan for a private sector and put the people, taxpayers on St. Martin, give them a burden that they do not desire or request. Now that you've heard from Parliament, and I know you have to go back to Parliament to give your responses, what are your thoughts today? And of course, what the Council of Ministers decided on this matter?
Good morning, Prime Minister. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the team. Good morning to the people of St. Martin. And regarding the meeting from ENIA last week, or yes, last week it was, I believe, I'm not too sure that was the statement by the faction leader in terms of disapproval. So I wanted to speak on behalf of them. They did share their concerns with how we got here. And I believe even our coalition partner, the leader of the UP, he also mentioned that as a government, you do what you have to do to protect the people, and that when it comes to Parliament and the budget, then they will then have further discussions and have the final decision there. In my position, it is finding, as I mentioned before in the last press briefing, it's finding the best possible deal with the current situation and be sure that we have tried our best to protect those policyholders, at the same time making sure that we have the best possible deal for the refinancing also. In regards to the agreement, we have what we call the Hoofdlijn Accord and the headline agreement, I think, if I make a direct translation, that has, my cabinet has put an advice together that was supposed to be in CoM yesterday, but due to the storm, that has been delayed until tomorrow. So that agreement is up for discussion in the Council of Ministers tomorrow, and once approved, we'll proceed onward.
Have you taken the proposal made by Bryson as to the way forward?
So again, there were many different queries and suggestions. A lot of these suggestions and queries had members of parliament brought forward were also things that we brought forward already in the negotiations and discussions and possibilities of getting them done. So again, in answering in parliament, we'll be able to go deeper into what is and what is not feasible, but I would basically say that 99% of all suggestions from parliament were included in discussions.
Thank you, Minister Edion, and thank you, Bibi. I would now like to Prime Minister. Prime Minister Jacobs has to add to that question as well.
Yes, as Minister mentioned, the Ministry of Finance has been leading in these negotiations and discussions and has looked at all the other options. So really and truly, the main problem or the main challenge for us is ensuring that those 10-10-23 loans do not become due, which would put a heavier burden on the people of St. Martin. And it was with that in mind that we are doing what we can to get the most favorable conditions. As such, the ministry has negotiated, and this is the best that we were able to come up with. And we have room thereafter to further discuss how things would be done, especially as it relates to COVID loans, which is the bigger challenge for us at this time. Of course, we're never happy when conditions are put on things that are, for us, unrelated, but the ENIA situation did have the attention of government prior to it becoming a condition in terms of seeking solutions for our pension holders, because at the end of the day, it would become a burden for government regardless. So we have to ensure that we can secure the fund for those pensioners and ensure that we can move forward. This is the best offer on the table, and the Ministry of Finance has done their utmost in that negotiation as such. So we look forward to being able to move forward from here. Parliament has their say in approving the budget, and then we will see where we go from there.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. I would now like to invite Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. I'd just like to stay on this same trend with the 600 million loan. Finance Minister, one of the proposals that came out of the meeting was that even though the Parliament...
Judy, sorry to interrupt. Can you hold the mic a little higher?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. So one of the proposals that came out of that meeting is that government should not accept this loan and that it should actually be given to ENIA via the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin. I would like to know, is this something that came up in the negotiations? And if so, what specifically was the response to that proposal from the Dutch government? And this is a question I had asked the Prime Minister some months back. You were not here, and it was on the whole issue of Mullet Bay. The central bank had indicated that it would go on the market. Is this something that government has discussed, that, is it something that we're interested in buying if it does go on the market, for the people of St. Martin? Any discussions on that? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Regarding the possibility of having money loaned from the Netherlands to an entity, yes, that was a discussion that did come up in negotiations. And basically, for lack of better words, the Netherlands indicated that they don't borrow money to foreign entities, foreign companies. They borrow money to countries. So that's one of the very first proposals that we did propose on the table on given the opportunity to, we will service the debt, but then the loan burden becomes that of the entity. So again, this is a very long negotiation, and we've discussed all other possibilities to ensure that we have the least possible effects on our long-term investment plans. In addition to that, still taking in mind that we want a solution for the policyholders. That is just not I don't necessarily agree that we just shouldn't care about these policyholders. Even though, and because you also, both of the media houses referenced that loaning 600 million guilders, I want to be very clear that 600 million is not St. Martin, because we keep on putting that in light of St. Martin, and I think it's very confusing to the public. The total amount to ENIA is that, but St. Martin's portion is 10%, on average about close to 10%. In addition to that, the big concern is that, especially for Curaçao, is that ENIA is, the policyholders represent about 1/6 of the population. So that's a huge amount of persons that significantly can impact the country socially. And that's not even accounting to the families. So if you have policyholders that represent 1/6 of a population, only accounting for one individual, right? That person will probably have a husband or a wife and kids. So the social impact of not finding a solution there is even more significant than here. But even though we will also have a significant impact. And some other let's say relevant information is that when we look at our data, our policyholders are a little bit younger than those of Curaçao, whereas those of Curaçao are they're going to fall into that bracket of being getting their pension way earlier than ours. So our risk overall was a lot less than that of Curaçao, but at the end of the day, we have to take all precautions and be prepared. Regarding the, I believe, purchase of Malaby, these are also discussions that actually I brought to the CoM in the last couple of weeks also, and it isn't as what's the word, as easy as that may be, right? The idea of taking on Malaby is another additional depth. First, we have to have the final conclusion of what it is actually valued at, and it then requires also a long-term plan of immediately investing, because now as a country take on another debt to develop and so forth, which is basically in essence the same thing that the EC, the holding route down that has Malaby, also is doing. So they are not working outside of St. Martin, and we had multiple council ministers meeting where they have to keep us involved in any decision making. So we want Malaby developed. We want to see it back to its glory days, even though I didn't get to experience it myself, maybe. So I don't know what those glory days actually are, but I've heard a lot of stories about them. And this will be in connection with the council ministers. It's not that they're just independently making decisions without the council ministers knowing. And we had a very, very strong meeting and firm discussions on this, that you cannot operate outside of St. Martin when it comes to Malaby. So I think I answered both of those questions.
Yes, I do have a follow-up.
Judy has a follow-up?
Yes. Now, one of the whole concerns in this whole thing is that it appears as though the central bank has failed in its supervisory role, because you have the Hero Bank issue, and now you have the Enya issue, and technically yourself and the finance minister of Curaçao, you guys are the bosses of the central bank. So what sort of measures would be put in place for the central bank, to be held responsible, if for lack of a better word, for its failure to properly supervise Enya?
So I think that one of those key areas was actually having a new board. Because this process didn't happen in my term. This is us again dealing with something that happened in the past, which required stronger supervision, looking at board members, looking also at the director, right? So the person actually making the decisions. So I think between then and now, supervision has increased and also increased accountability.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Thank you, Judy. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rulaika. Minister of Finance again. Minister Irian, I think the Justice Minister, she's in Parliament this morning discussing the payout for the police officers and how this would go forward. The Justice Minister is suggesting that this payment be made in a period of 10 years. Minister, some police officers already say that they are refusing this because some of them might die out before that 10-year period is up. And I'd like to know exactly what happened to the initial proposal of between 3 to 5 years. Minister, you also stated prior, I cannot remember the date, but you also stated that the 2024 budget has a 40 million surplus. Can you tell me if this is a budget projection, or is it liquid cash we have available?
Sorry, can you just be a little more, because we had two different topics. Can you say that again, please?
The first one, I'm asking about the payout for the police officers with the justice.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also asking you...
But what specifically? I also want to be clear on that.
The proposal to pay the police officers within a 10-year span.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking that what happened to the initial proposal of making the payout between 3 to 5 years? And I'm also indicating that the police officers are also rejecting the fact that they do not want to wait 10 years to get their payout because some of them might die out by then. They even indicated that they saw this happening in the CCSU meeting, but there they didn't have a vote, they didn't have a say, they just witnessed what was discussed. And then I'm also
So
asking you.
let me just answer that question again and then go on to the next. Regarding the CCS meeting you're referring to, I'm not too aware of that. And maybe I'll say maybe on our part, and I'll have to talk to the Minister of Justice on this, on maybe communication, because I know that in our discussions and communication that went out, and I'm pretty sure the Minister of Justice also said this a few times, that everyone isn't in the 10-year bracket. So it depends on the scale and the amount that you are owed, that it'll be broken down. So the max payout will be 10 years, and there's some persons that will get paid in 3 years. So it's depending on the scale, the amount that is owed to you. So I'll make that very clear again. I'm pretty sure, again, it has been said. So I really don't want to have a confusion. I don't want to leave here today and say that it's a 10-year period, because that has been communicated consistently. And I'll say it again, 10 years is for the largest amounts, right? Payout, and the largest amount, the scale. And I believe there's one other item, and there are persons who probably will be paid out. There are persons that just became, let's say, officers or working in the justice system a year or two before this issue became a topic, right? So they might be able to get paid out in 2 years or 3 years. So I don't have, let's say, the formation in front of me of who and when they get paid out, but I know it's a tiered approach going forward. That was all for justice, I believe, right? Yes.
And then BB, your next question.
Other question was regarding what you stated earlier. I can't remember how long ago, but you did say that there is a 40 million surplus in the 2024 budget. I'm asking you if this is a budget projection.
Which one? 2024?
Yes, there's a 40 million surplus in the budget. Asking if this is a budget projection or is it a liquid cash? If I'm not sure on 2024, it's 2023.
No, so neither. So I have never said that, to be honest. So if you could find footage of me saying that, I'll owe you lunch. Okay. So I haven't said that, and I think maybe you're confusing it with the letter from the CFT. Where CFT mentioned that the projections for the government looks more positive. So that's their article. And specifically in that article, they also mentioned that the Minister of Finance is a little bit more pessimistic than them. So in their article, they said we look on track for 15 to 20. And I said, in their response, they said that I said more along the lines of 2 million guilders surplus. So it was a discrepancy that, yes, we'll be in the surplus. They were a lot more optimistic, which is, the opposite of the last few years of CFT, I guess. And I was being more like how CFT normally is. I was a little bit more pessimistic in terms of the projections, but I've never mentioned 40 million guilders surplus ever.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Thank you, BB. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Minister Otley, it's been quite a while since we've heard anything about the request for proposal for marijuana that done some time back. Can you kindly update us on that? And currently, there is quite a lot of concerns out there regarding the national health insurance. And I would like to ask if you can probably give an insight as to what sort of financial obligations would be required from employers and employees. So the premiums that is different from what they're currently paying now. So what would be the difference in what people are obligated to pay now and what they would be obligated to pay under the NHI? And also,
BB will allow Minister Otley to answer those questions. Minister?
That's just one.
That was two.
Oh.
Two. Okay, Minister will allow you to do your 3 questions. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. And if also, Minister, in a nutshell, you can just give us an indication as to what are some of the major changes that can be expected under the NHI that is different from what is being offered currently under the SZV. And thank you for accepting my other question.
No problem. Thank you. As it pertains to the cannabis, the legislation, it has been presented to the Council of Ministers. We will then move forward we need the Gazetting Way, which is our legal department, to then review and draft an agreement with whatever company is selected. Okay, once Gazetting Way does this, the company will be responsible for assisting justice, VSA, finance, basically the entire ministry with their legislation. So that is what the RFP was, to see what would be needed, have stakeholder studies, interview the churches, the schools, and deal with our legislation. As far as justice, the decriminalization, all of that aspects, the company would pay for. Okay. As it pertains to the Sustainable Affordable Healthcare Act, formerly known as GHI or NHI, okay. Sustainable Affordable Healthcare Act, I would like to invite everyone that is viewing and listening to tune into Parliament. I'll be in Parliament tomorrow at 10 a.m. for urgent public meeting on this matter. So I want to invite everyone, and there I will divulge everything to you. And then I know normally when I do a great presentation, you often reach out for my presentation. So I'll send it to you directly so you can publish it to avoid any miscommunication.
So we can get an exclusive here?
Oh, so I would like to also make one correction as it pertains to the RFP, the cannabis. The RFP has been presented to CoM, not the legislation. And as I stated, the company that is selected will then assist with the legislation. And of course, it has to go to Parliament and everything to pass. So just wanted to clarify that. And as when it pertains to the Sustainable Affordable Healthcare Act, I would just like everyone to tune into Parliament, and then because we're really going to go in depth, and I know the MPs are going to have great questions, and we can answer it.
Okay, just one quick follow-up regarding the RFP. Who is the company selected?
There's actually two companies that made it. I can't remember the name off the top, but I can send it to you in writing. I'll be glad. I don't have no reason not to send it to you, but I can't remember the name off the top. But however, the committee that was formed did a system and interviewed each company, and then the top two companies and the entire selection was presented to CoM for choosing. But I would send it to you, and of course, Ms. Shah, who's here, then even though she didn't ask, I'll send it to her as well in writing. Okay, don't.
Thank you, Minister Otley, and thank you, Judy. We now move on to the third round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you. Ministers, and I'll pose this as a general question. It has been about 10 years now that civil servants haven't received a COLA adjustment. Can you tell us exactly when another adjustment is expected? And Minister of Finance, I believe the IMF.
Bibi, who was that question directed to?
Any one of them. I place it out general because civil servants, it's, Minister, the IMF, during their visit, I believe they stated that their government was not investing enough in doing enough private investments. How is this projected in the 2024 budget, and has the IMF issued a report on their visit as yet?
Thank you, Bibi. We'll go ahead and let Prime Minister answer the first part of the question. Prime Minister?
Yes, as it relates to civil servants, Misha, we are in ongoing discussions, as I think I mentioned a couple of press briefings ago, on the legislation that regulates remuneration, etc., hiring of civil servants, which needed changing. There were already several proposals on the table for changing, but as a government, we had seen a need to prioritize urgently some that were hampering forward movement of civil servants. And they're in the final discussions. Hopefully by next week, we will have the negotiation teams from government and the unions finalize the, covenant as to the agreement as to how we're moving forward with that. And it does include a plan for adjustments of the cost of living as well. Of course, bearing in mind our financial situation. So there is a good and amicable discussion being had between government and the unions as to how that can be addressed in the coming years, not just in 2024, but in the coming years. And the Minister of Finance can give further elucidation.
Mr. Adian?
Yes, thank you. And regarding the question regarding COLA, it's even a bigger package than just COLA, but I would prefer that to be not to go into details in terms of the negotiation team. And we're having great discussions with the unions because they also understand that it's not about us versus them. It's actually we're both fighting on both ends for the civil servants. This topic is not something that we brought up this year. This is a topic that we already started to look into from 2020, but due to COVID and not having cash at that point in time, it wasn't even a concept that we could even imagine to put into works, given all that transpired in the last 2.5 years prior. Early this year, though, while preparing for Budget 2024, I did indicate to my staff that we have to prepare for something, right? Not fully knowing the amounts. What we started to do earlier this year, I believe in April, we started to look at what possibilities we do have. So what amount of money can be put together to be able to take into consideration for future negotiations. So that process started in April. At that point in time, we still didn't have an idea, a final picture of justice, and we definitely didn't know about the annual situation. So this has hampered, not hampered, but it has, for example, lessened what we initially thought we could have done. But it's still enough that I believe that the civil servants will appreciate, as I believe the last COLA adjustment was 2012, I believe. So this will be the first in the last 11 years. And I'm happy that we were able to put something together early, and all of the cost-saving mitigations and revenue-generating measures that we took up early, now we're able to confidently put them in place for Budget 2024. So by next week, we should be able to finalize this and and then properly announce.
Thank you, Minister Edion. The IMF.
The IMF, yes.
Bibi, can you repeat your question, please?
4 or 5 questions in one.
Yes, I asked you about the IMF. During their visit, they said that government was not investing in doing enough private investment. And I'm asking you, how is this projected in the 2024 budget? Mm-hmm. And also, have they issued a report on their visitors yet?
Yes, so I agree with IMF, and with agreeing with them, I'm also very proud that you saw it for yourself, that we have 60.9 million guilders in capital expenditure to be executed for 2023. And that's exactly what he meant, that for the last more than a decade, there were no capital investments in the country. And that's something that doesn't allow much progress in the country. So as I've published it in the paper, also on our social media, the steps that we took in the last few years to ensure that in 2023 we were able to get approval by the Council of Ministers, by Parliament through budget, by CFT, by the Kingdom Council of Ministers, and by the first and second chamber of the Netherlands. And that process was not a process that happened in the past, right? So it's even more stringent now, right? I can say that I'm very proud of the ministry for getting us to this point, and preparing also the different ministries on how to present their capital expenditure so that it can be approved. In addition to that, what we also did was make sure that you bring projects on board that you could actually execute within the year you say you're going to execute them. We were very strict on these policies also. So we had our own internal accountability, that we just don't have all these pet projects, right? But actual projects that would impact the community. In addition to that, you are able to execute. Some of which have already started. Raul Village is the furthest along, so that's the field and the track. And I know that the department is working very hard on including a couple other aspects because of the process they took, and because they work so fast and efficient, that they're able to even find some cost savings where they could put that money towards another aspect of Raul Village. So I'm very happy with the Department of Sports and how they work to get to this point, and also believe in the ministry that the CapEx would be on board because they started this process before even knowing that officially the money would be there. So yes, I agree with IMF, and I'm happy that I'm pretty sure in their next article they'll mention the investments for 2023, and we do have investments currently for 2024 that we have to make sure that they fall in line. But we have investments from the different ministries for 2024 also.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Prime Minister Jacobs.
Yes, if I just may add, I think there's a lot of misconception as to the process. Minister just explained the process of what had to go through to be able to get approved capital expenditures for the country. And I know that there are very disturbing comments being made in the public about a bag of money being dropped on St. Martin and it being just in time for elections. Really and truly, the process is something that every government wants to do every year. But because of the financial situation that we had with COVID, etc., we definitely could not put those type of things or get the approvals, correct me if I'm wrong, Minister, for capital expenditures. And even when we came in 2020 and we went to the Kingdom Council of Ministers, I personally went to lobby for the 2019 approved CapEx, which was never ever issued to St. Martin. So it wasn't for lack of trying that this government wasn't able to secure the CapEx, and now we're finally able to do so as we're moving, like we say, into a more balanced budget for 2023 and beyond. But blessed that we were still able to have expenditures in investments being made via the trust fund projects, which are also government's projects. It's just that from our own budget, we haven't been up until this year successful to secure CapEx. But I believe those other projects also allowed our economy to continue to be boosted and to grow.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I have one quick follow-up question, and my follow-up question is to Minister Irian regarding the question that Bibi asked on the COLA. Can you specify what amount people can expect? And my question is for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, sometime back you had mentioned that the process is being finalized for the appointment of a deputy governor. We are in the peak of the hurricane seasons. Emergencies can happen if the governor is away or ill or something. These things need to be signed. So what stage are we at currently with the appointment of the governor? Who is the candidate? And also, GEBE, Prime Minister. Can you update us on what is the status of the input of clients' information? I know the last time you said it was 25% info that had to be inputted. And with all that's happening currently, is GB has it been able to, and has it been keeping up with the payments to its financiers? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy. Minister Irian.
Thank you for your question. Regarding the COLA, like I mentioned, we're busy, negotiating items. And I would prefer that, out of respect for the negotiations, that we, after the next week meeting, that we then mention. Not that I, outside the negotiations, mention any figures or numbers, but a lot of opportunity for the team to together mention that we have finalized the process and what it is. But that'll be soon.
Thank you, Minister Eden. Prime Minister Jacobs.
In your asking the GB question, I missed the first part. What was the first question?
So you had indicated some time back that GEB
prior to the GB question.
Prior to the GB question.
Did you have something for me? Yes.
I asked about the appointment of the acting governor and who the candidate is.
Correct. So let me start with that. The process on our end was finalized, the necessary vetting that needed to take place, but of course it needs to go to the Kingdom Council of Ministers, etc. So it wasn't able to be handled in last week. I believe the last meeting was on the 30th of the Kingdom Council of Ministers. It wasn't finalized in time to get there. They need a 3 weeks lead for certain decisions. So it will be in the next Kingdom Council of Ministers meeting, after which then only then can we finalize the process. So we're at the ending gate, so to speak. But at no point are urgent decisions delayed. Even if the governor has to be off island, we have let's say a protocol in place to be able to get approvals, etc. Because, thankfully COVID has taught us how to work virtually. So at no point is the operations of government in any type of jeopardy. As it relates to NVGEBE, I can update that they are progressing. I don't want to say any numbers as to how far they are now, but they're closer than they were when I mentioned 25% still needed to be done. They're closer. I'm going to leave them to divulge their percentages, but they are definitely closer. And hopefully in the coming month or two, we can see it being wrapped up. We have not received any updates or reports that they are lagging behind in dealing with their obligations financially. And I will have them put out the communication regarding any of that directly as well. I will ask them to do that as the chair of the Council of Ministers. However, I would like to encourage persons to, make use of the opportunities that have been put forward for payment arrangements and the like, to ensure that they remain viable and that we can continue to enjoy electricity as a community.
Just one quick follow-up, Prime Minister. Are we to expect the first female deputy governor?
The official announcements will be made when the trajectory for the appointment of the new acting governor is finalized.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We now move on to the final round. Bibi, one question per minister. That's it.
Thank you.
Bibi, you have the floor.
The Minister of VSR. Minister, based on what I know and what I asked you prior, SZV, their financials have not been approved. How do they intend to construct or finance the new building they are planning in Cahill?
So as stated before, when we discussed the financials from SWAB, from SZB, their financials will be approved. Their previous financials were approved. So if you're talking the new ones, I think 2023, 2022. Yeah, 2022, I think it's now at the ministry, I think at the SG level, and then it'll be brought up. So it will be in time, in due time.
Thank you, Minister Otley. Thank you, Bibi. Judy, you have the final question. Again, one question, one minister. Go ahead.
Prime Minister, I would really have hoped that the Minister of Education is here. And since he is not here, I'm really hoping that you can answer my question. This question is regarding the St. Dominic Primary School. A meeting was held with parents recently regarding the relocation of students as a result of works that has to be done at the school by the NRPB. Now, with this relocation, the hours will be cut. The teaching hours for students will be cut because of the whole traffic situation, as students will have to be moved to the Sister Magda school, which is very congested at a certain point. I just wanted to know, parents are very concerned about this because it was put upon them at the 11th hour. And with the school hours being cut, what sort of guarantees is there that the education of the students will be up to par, for want of a better word? And another question I have is the Sister Marie Laurent School.
One question, one minister.
I'm so sorry.
Prime Minister.
Sorry.
Yes, unfortunately, the Minister of ECYS isn't here. And I believe any decisions made by school boards as to how they will deal with reconstructions of the school is at the school board level. However, I will pass this question on to the minister, and I would respectfully suggest that you get in touch with the school board to determine whether or not the inspectorate will be checking in as well, I'm sure, as to ensure education. As you know, for instance, the Sister Marie Laurent School, as well as the Martin Luther King, has been dispersed over various schools for a couple of years since Hurricane. They are finally, some of them are finally able to, hopefully in January, go back to their schools. But now it is a turn to fix the other schools. So I would allow the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, to officially respond to that question. And I would suggest that you also take it up with the relevant school boards. You're welcome.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Telems Tel TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.